Hello, everyone. My name is Trish McCabe, and welcome to Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks. This is a podcast where people from all walks of life will be sharing their stories and the wisdom they have gained from their life experiences. In no way is this show offering any kind of advice or counsel. These conversations will be of a very sensitive nature, so please be respectful in your comments, and thank you for watching. Hello, everyone. My name is Trish McCabe. Welcome to Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks. Today, I have my guest here, Pasha Paroh.
How you doing?
Yay, I'm so glad. This is so great. Today, we're going to talk about an experience that he shared on a short video on his podcast channel about experiences that you had when you were little because you were really what's the proper, I know I said accelerated. That's not right. What is the terminology for?
I was in the advanced gifted program. That's what it's called, advanced gifted. That's the technical term for it.
That's the technical term for it. Okay, so I've been watching your videos here and there, and that one really struck me so much that I shared it on my page because I felt it was really important for people to understand how these things affect us when we're really little and we're placed in certain places. And what you had said in that video was that you got good things out of it when we talked on the podcast, on your podcast. But I want to talk a little bit more about also how that affected you in a negative way and hindered you in some respects of your life.
Yeah. It could easily be seen as, let's say it like this. I always say for me, it's always the perfect day, and I'm so glad it happened like that because it gave me certain characteristics that allow me to be who I am that otherwise I probably wouldn't have, in conjunction with the other elements of your life that help mold you, into who you're becoming. Now for the more social of us, a lot of times it's easy for them to see that as something negative because they're looking at how it affects, it creates disconnects, between you and others. In some ways, if you remain true to who you are, and that's what we were talking about as conformity yesterday and everything. And by the way, thanks for stopping by YNet 7. I really appreciate you. It was a great discussion. Yes. So that's really what it is it really has, with all of that conformity and everybody fighting and struggling either knowingly or unknowingly to find their own identity, that does create a divide when the rest of the world is programmed to fit in and assimilate,
Yes. And I have a learning disability, so I was segregated for that. I was put in this box for that. I was fortunate enough to have some really good teachers early on that kind of helped me through that, but it's really difficult socially because you're treated a little bit different. I would, on my end. And was that the same for you? Was that your experience?
I'm really glad that you shared that yesterday too. We got to talk about that for a little while, and everybody learns differently. And what I think is the amazing what the amazing find of that is, as ones may consider that we appear to be on opposite ends of the spectrum, we really were going through the same thing,
Yes,
for different reasons.
Were you because you were gifted this way, were you isolated from the rest of the class? How was that managed for you when they found out that you had this gift? What happened exactly when they discovered that you had this gift? I still can't get the wording right on that.
Okay, so when I was in the public school, because the first like kindergarten through second grade, I was in private school. And what actually started this finding was my sister couldn't get in because she actually didn't test high enough. My younger sister didn't test high enough when it was her turn to go to school. So my mother elected to pull me out of the school that I was in and put me in public school so that it would be easier for her, basically. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so then when you arrive at public school, you're so far ahead. What are you going to do? So I wind up going to the advanced gifted program, and to paint the picture that answers your question. So this, it was to the point where there was a school. You know how you have your what's it called, school district, right?
Right.
And you might have a few different schools in the same grade levels per school district. Well, they would have this one main school where these special classes were held at. So all the other kids from the other schools would have to go get bused to that school. So you figure on a regular Monday through Friday week, school days, you might go this week, Tuesday and Thursday. So you had so when people make the joke about being on a short bus, they actually sent the little short bus for for us. And me, and I think it was about 9 or 10 of us from that school would get on the bus, leave our school, get on the bus in the middle of school, get bused to another school, show up, go take our classes there all day, come back. And we would do that, it would alternate, twice this week, 3 times the next week. Might be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it would keep flip-flopping like that. So you could imagine, especially for the ones that had no idea what you were doing, they just saw you getting on a short bus. Yeah, it was a lot of interest.
Were you made fun of
Oh
because
yeah,
you were on the short bus or whatever? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but
Hmm.
that's at that age, everybody's looking for something to make fun of, for some reason. So it was just ironic that they used the short bus too for that. So
um, I guess so the good side, let's talk about the good side of being in this program, what it
yeah,
did for you, how it, because the other part which I really loved about your video, I want to mention that because it's relative. Let me just see, it was about the things many people go through their whole life having never pursued their dreams or found out what their calling was in life. I guess something to that, something about the graveyard. And I don't remember how you worded it, but I would say there's a correlation there because because of this program, you were able to use your gift and your purpose, so to speak,
yeah.
because of that.
I would say so. And the irony is, when I look back at my class of people who attended it with me, let's say from the same school that we all left from and went there together, right? It's the interesting thing is, from the ones that I still are aware of, some people go off and you lose sight and track of them in conversation with them. But it's a split. It's a split, and I think this represents just like anywhere else in life. You got some people that, like we talked about yesterday, they fell into the need to conform and or compliance, where it's like, we're gonna assimilate when you're looking, but I really feel like this inside. I know they do, because I can tell we all came from the same origins. So and then for the ones that can remain true to themselves, it's actually quite empowering, because the tools that it provides you. Like I was studying Greek mythology and analogies in 3rd grade. So when you're
Incredible.
thank you. So when you're actually talking to someone that's trying to get gaslight you or throw certain things at you,
Doubt, make
metaphorically
you doubt
speaking,
yourself. Yes.
right,
Mhm.
anything that's using metaphors and similes and stuff like that, you're really keen to that, and a lot of their approaches won't have the same effect on you. So it's like you're shielded from certain attacks, so to speak, on your mental.
Yeah, I would think, how do I want to say that? I would think when you're learning these things like Greek mythology and really grasping these concepts and things, that it would be maybe be a little bit more difficult to talk with other kids,
Mhm.
because if you wanted to talk about those things and they weren't on that level, and not meaning level in a bad way, just weren't able to grasp that, I would think that'd be difficult to build relationships. You mentioned something
Oh,
that in your
yeah.
little clip about it was very difficult. The downside of it was difficult to relate to people and vice versa, because you were on this level that, what did you say, 2% of the people are on? That's
Now
really,
I've always tested in the top 2%, I mean top 5%. And then recently, in the last 10 years, I tested in the top 2% of the nation. So it was brought to my attention at one point in life, in the last decade, that people don't take that the way I mean it when I say it, because they're like, oh, it looks like you're trying to make yourself lofty, or, talk down on them because you're saying you're part of the top 2% when you test it. I'm like, no, 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 no. You don't understand. What I'm basically saying is up front, like I'm letting you know, I already understand who I am. First of all, we got to know ourselves, right? And because I
yes.
know myself so well, I understand the effect I could have on others. So what that means is, what I'm really trying to say is, being in the top 2%, I already know I'm going to have a challenge with 98% of the people I come in contact with. So I'm really trying to let them know, hey, look, it's okay. You're going to consider me like this weirdo, but we're going to work through it. All right. A lot of
You're
people
going
feel
to
the same way you do.
understand.
Right. Right.
Right. Okay. So all you were doing was just trying to say, hey, if you don't understand me right away, here's why. Because
Right.
you're on this other level that
Right.
others can't even come close to grasping. That's not boasting. It just is what it is. You weren't trying
We
to
can
act
come
like
close.
you're all that. You were just
Nah.
trying to explain the facts. Like,
Yeah. And I think we all
and
had to, I think it's possible for anybody. I really, like we talked about yesterday, I kind of shun away from anything that isolates me or put me on a pedestal, because what I believe is what I know rather is, if you want to arrive at the destination, you're going to do whatever it takes for you individually to get there. So if I can read a book in a week, but you want to finish the same book, it's okay if it take you a month, because it may take me a week. Somebody else can read it in 2 days. You know what I mean? So why? It's just a matter of what you want to accomplish, what you want to get done. So
I love
wow, like
that.
you said, the third graders, like other third graders just wanted to play. You know what I mean? And
And
recess
here
and
you're reading Greek mythology and all these theories that are very complex,
yeah,
and you want to talk about those, and they're like, you're weird.
yeah. The school I came from, whether it had to spark something in me and nurtured it, right? We had like computer classes in kindergarten, working on brand new Macintoshes
Wow.
back then.
Wow.
So
It's amazing.
homework, like you're what, kindergarten, I guess we're 5 years old. 5 years old, you know how to type like 37 words per minute. So coming into a public school system, that's what it was. It really wasn't the people. I always say it's all based on the experience and exposure.
Yeah. And this is a great example of this. My complaint with the school system and
Mhm.
the curriculums and all that is this one bar that isn't accurate, because nobody's on the same level. And different people have different strengths,
Right.
um, different abilities. And, maybe they're really good with reading and writing, not so much with math. And when you just have this one bar, and then if a child like myself, it was extremely damaging, can't get there, then you really feel like there's something wrong with you. And I would think for
Right.
you, maybe you didn't, but in a way, it was like you were separated from others because you were so far advanced, which that wasn't your fault. It was a gift, but those two just really illustrate the bar factor that isn't real. That makes any sense. It doesn't
Right.
really allow people to, like you said, get to know themselves, get to know their strengths and whatever. If they're constantly being told what it should look like and what level it should be at, it just makes it, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Limiting. There, it creates these limits in a way. And we'll get back to that later. But Yeah. So am I correct when I'm talking about this, when you said in your clip that it made it really difficult for you to develop relationships with people and communicate with them because of this separation kind of thing?
Do we not use foul language on your?
You can go ahead, I don't
Okay.
care.
So at the end, the punchline of it all, right? The punchline of it all was like, and I hadn't, I described pretty much everything we went over in like a short summary. And I said, and because of that, I haven't been able to have like a good relationship with a bullshit ass motherfucker since, right? And so there we are with the split and the fork in the road. It's the social people are gonna take it as, oh wow, that's damaging because he can't have good relationships. Now, me, I'm looking at it as it's a sight, it's a sift. You know what I mean? Where it's sifting out, the people that would just be toxic. Like no matter who you are, there's gonna be that group of people that are gonna be toxic to you because of your personality, and who you are. So that's why you don't
Yes.
interact with them as much as maybe the people you like. Whatever that is, whatever that group is, that's what the effect is for me. It's like a screening process. So it actually works to my advantage,
Hmm.
the way I view it, because I have the mentality it's always the perfect day. You just gotta figure out why. Just like with
Very
you,
interesting. Hmm.
just like with you when we talked yesterday, I was like, they pushed the label on you of being, having a learning disorder, right? But in that's only because the public school system is a factory. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No child left behind, because like any other factory, you want to push out as much product so you can get as much payment for it as possible. So you're taking too long, something's wrong with you, instead of putting you in an equally enriched environment for your learning
Environment.
capacity. You see what I mean? So for me, they gave
Hmm.
me this environment, spent all these probably millions of dollars to create whatever, so that I could be in an enriched environment to cater to my needs. But then they say people on your side, there's something wrong with them. But people were saying something was wrong with me too. Like we talked about that in
Yes.
third grade. Something's wrong with both of them. So, but
Right.
why doesn't the school systems create the equally enriched program to stimulate the
Everyone.
other side?
Yes. The bar. That's, I don't like this bar um that says everyone's has to learn at the same rate, same capacity in the same way. And if
Mhm.
you don't, they tell you there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And what the truth is, that principle, I think it was at OSHA, that said, when the flower isn't blossoming, you don't fix the flower, you
Mm.
fix the environment for which it grows in.
That's
And that's
that's
why I bring
amazing.
up school, because you're so impressionable
Then
at
yeah,
such a young age, um, that anything that anybody tells you about yourself, you're going to take it to heart. You're going to take it within your spirit. And that's
yeah,
something you end up carrying with you for the rest of your life. And it affects every decision you make, which is why we're doing this, why we're talking about this, because it's inaccurate.
yeah,
It needs some
definitely.
revisions, some rethinking that promotes and the growth of every child, whichever way works best for them, not the other way around.
That's what it is. That's what it
Yeah.
is. What works best for them. Because even within the people they're gonna deem normal, right? Because we were both abnormal, right? So even for the people they're gonna say is normal, you still got people that learn from reading better than they do watching a video. You got some people that go to
Yeah.
YouTube and find everything and can build a spaceship just from watching on YouTube. So you got the visual learner, you got the writing learner, you got the muscle memory learner,
The audio.
everybody, the audio learner, let me see it done, observation. So, and then you got the people that combine all of those, and probably ones I didn't mention as well. So everybody learns differently. And that's the challenge, is allowing people to be who they are instead of forcing them to conform to fit some mold or system, so that so that it works for somebody else that doesn't have nothing to do with them, and it's not going to live their life. you know?
And what
So
good is it to force a child to learn in a certain way they don't want to? First of all, they're uncomfortable. When a child is uncomfortable learning anything, they're not going to
yeah,
learn it.
yeah,
If they have anxiety, if they feel unworthy, they're embarrassed because they didn't answer a question right, or no. If the child doesn't answer the question right, you don't make them feel bad. Your goal is, okay, how can I get this child to learn this? Not there's something
exactly.
wrong with them. They didn't learn it the way it was supposed, the way we're teaching it. So, and that part too, like I actually did get an A+ in life science in high school
Mhm.
because that teacher did a roundtable thing. He had everybody make turn their desks facing each other, and
Mhm.
we would have open discussions on the lesson that we were learning. And it was so great because each person gave a different viewpoint on the same subject that the other would not have considered. And
Exactly.
I got an A+. It was the most empowering class I ever had. And Mr. Gleaner, if you're out
Mhm.
there, thank you.
Right.
He's a wonderful
And
teacher.
that's great because that's proof right there. Because the ones that and that's, you know what, matter of fact, that's proof of everything we were talking about with the whole learning at what's worked for you, because obviously the other classes didn't do it, so they gave you a label, right?
Yeah.
But look, what I want to mention there is you said Mr. Klinger,
Mr. Gleaner.
Gleaner. Okay.
Gleaner, I
So
believe.
so that's a great example, and it may have been purely chance, or it may have been done on purpose. But when you look at, again, the destination you're trying to get to, okay, you can say what's going to work best and create the plan to get everybody there ahead of time, because you already know where you're trying to arrive, and you've already had time to think about the different challenges you may face. So as a leader of the class or slash teacher, he was preparing his unit knowing they all learn differently. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to create an enrichment atmosphere by having a table discussion, allowing everyone to feel a part of the group,
Included.
included,
No
inclusion.
separation.
And your other teachers was like giving you titles, isolating you, making you feel something, making the other kids feel something about you at the same time.
Embarrass you on purpose, sometimes even because their ego is in the way and making it that it's the child's fault. No, it's your
Exactly.
fault that your child didn't learn from your approach. You're
And
the
that's the
leader.
power of having a plan. What's that 5 P's? Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Ooh, I love that. Amen.
It's not mine. I borrowed it from somewhere. I just forget
Well,
who
it's
put
really good.
it.
We should do a
So
podcast on that. That's really
absolutely.
good. And break it
Absolutely.
down.
So
One
just like
thing
we
I love
said,
about your show. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay, real quick. Just like we said earlier, on this side, they put a lot of money up, I'm sure, and they had buses going to different schools. Proper preparation there prevented poor performance. On this
What a
side,
concept.
they didn't have any preparation other than ridicule, isolation, slander.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Pointing the thing. Well, I love one thing I love about your work and your approach, which is really great, is the meaning of words and breaking things down
Mm,
and getting clarification on the meaning of those words is really important. It's a side thing, but it's just it came to my mind and I wanted to say that to the public. If he has a wonderful podcast, I highly recommend it. It's very
thank you.
educational on so many levels. And yeah, I just wanted to say that because it came to my spirit to
I
mention that
think
particular.
one, thank you for
Hmm.
mentioning that. And to me, it's absolutely at the core of everything.
Yes.
What the term is etymology, which is the study of the origin of words. And what many people know, going back to school, young school, right, is we had spelling class, right? Now, some of the special schools, privileged, more luxury schools, they had grammar. They didn't have spelling, but they had grammar, and a little buzz is that the word technology actually referred to grammar. All right.
Hmm.
Because what we know is spelling class, they called it spelling class because words are magical. They have power.
Yes.
They're like spells. You
This
know what I
it's
mean?
it's a big element of manifestation. and
Yes.
manifesting what you want
Yes.
in life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
now on top of that, here we go with the empowerment factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because once you know what words mean, because they taught us all the same thing. So we think things mean something, but they don't when we really that's the like what the so it frees us from that bondage there mentally. It also creates that disconnect because now you're going to start using words because you know what they mean, and then people are going to be looking at you like you're crazy because they're using it in the common sense. But yeah, the hardest part of having any wisdom is constantly remaining disciplined to the knowledge.
Yes. And understanding the words, and also being really mindful of how they're used. I did okay in English. I wanted to go back to something earlier we were talking about, because I had this learning disability or disorder or whatever. I actually got some of my greatest education on listening to music artists, the lyrics,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the way that they would, and especially, well, all of it, the the narrating, the storytelling.
Mhm.
I really got such a tremendous education from that.
Yeah.
And that helped me in school, believe it or not. It was, I don't know, it was something that came to me earlier that I wanted to say and I'd forgotten to say it, but we all, there's just so many different ways to learn. That I guess is what I'm thinking is what's at the bottom of bringing that point up. But anyways, to tie in with what you said about the meaning of words and things like that, music helped me to understand that.
Yeah.
Because some of the songwriters would really break it down in a way that when there's music applied to it, you don't feel that resistance to learn. You're learning it without even realizing that you're learning it. So,
Becomes fun.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was so, but anyways, the spell factor and the word factor just made me think about words, and people tell me I have a really good vocabulary at times. And I was lucky I graduated from high school, but it comes from poetry, songwriting, music. And that got me into the flow of words and how they come together and all that. So I wanted to mention that because I know there's got to be lots of other people like me that found their way through
Yeah.
music and
Yeah.
art.
Not only are there lots of other people like you that benefit from listening to the music, it was very valuable that you mentioned that because that's actually why I started making music myself, is to be able to put the message and the knowledge out there, you know. And you have the opportunity to use the words, and then you got people saying that it's amazing when you give people feedback from them and they're like this side of the fence because they don't know, they hear what you're saying but they don't know what you're saying because they think they know, so they're a little off. But then you get the people that actually put it all
Get
together.
it.
And what I want you to do, Trish, is I want you to work on, let's get away from, we know the history that you had, right? But let's get away from the label, the stigma. Because what I'm listening to and what I've seen in your podcast and talking to you and your Facebook, you are just as much a part of the top 2% as I am in
Aw.
your thought process and the stuff you're talking about high level science. Basically, what we're discussing here is really could be broken down to quantum physics. We're talking about the energy
Aw.
transfer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're on that level. Now it may, however long it took you, however you learned it,
Aw.
you know what I mean? So how are they going to label you having a learning defect when you still wind up knowing
I got goosebumps.
more than what
This is sweet.
majority of the world knows? You see what I'm saying? That's
This,
gaslighting.
this,
That's
yes,
gaslighting.
yes. This is why, and viewers for listening, why I started my podcast and why it's called Wisdom from All Walks of Life. Because there's education and then there's wisdom. They're two
Yes.
different things. They're both tools, but they're two different things. And you can learn a lot. We talked about this out of the mouths of babes.
Mhm.
Sometimes children will just see something and say it with no edit. Wow.
No
He's
filters.
smart
Yeah.
because he's paying attention.
Yeah.
So that's what the power is. And people, I don't believe in hierarchy, I guess basically what I'm saying. And
Right.
why I don't believe in it is because I've learned from children. I've learned from, people of all ages, all walks of life. And that's why I'm doing this show, to illustrate that truth, that your education is not all that matters. It's not the only education that you get. Life experience is
Right.
instrumental in having an education as well. It's
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
It
And
absolutely
all over
does.
the place.
It absolutely does. Another byproduct of having that start, so to speak, in school itself is that you really don't feel limited because you work on you work on so much stuff that you actually wind up feeling like you can do anything. So when it comes down to say, hey, what do you want to, most people want to go to college. You should go to college. You could definitely get in and, whatever. And you're like, when most people feel like, hey, I can good at this, I like that. So only got 2 or 4 things to pick from anyway. You're stuck with the whole infinity of what do I want to be? And you wind up not going to college because you're like, F it. You know what I mean? I don't need college. And then you go and you wind up at the production factory and they test you instead of interview you. So everybody's amazed that you wind up becoming near the end of your tenure. Like, this is speaking of myself, but I'm giving this example here. So I was the vice chairman of maintenance and reliability chapter for all of 3M Global. I was a maintenance
Wow.
scheduler there. So I was responsible for the integrity of the assets in all 3 buildings in our factory, our plant. And I had no degree, but I do that on purpose because I appreciate the challenge of still accomplishing that feat, so to speak, without a degree. You know what I mean? Because that opens up the doors from my perspective, that enables me to open up the doors to empower all the other people who don't have the degrees to be considered next time. You see what I'm
Oh,
saying?
that's great. I love
Yeah.
that.
We all here for
Yeah.
purposes. That's why you got this wisdom, because no matter what, you're gonna fulfill your purpose. So the labels and the slander and the gaslighting was just to try and slow your progress, but they can't stop you from what you're sitting here to do.
Yeah. Music was a great source of channeling uh who I am. And I'm going to be moving forward more with the music.
Congratulations.
So that ditto. So yeah, but yes, I think that's so important when you think, and we were talking about this yesterday, when you think about some of the most successful people, many of them didn't have much education at all. They just had the vision and the dream, and
Yeah.
they didn't know how they were going to do it. They just knew that they were going to, they had to. The
Yeah.
vision is what drove them. The Wright brothers, we were talking about Walt Disney, any of the great inventors. My grandfather, I'm going to bring him up because he deserves a plug. My grandfather, I don't think he got past like the 8th grade. He started off in the 30s as a water boy in the boxing world.
Okay.
And from being the water boy, he watched the whole industry, how it all went, kind of like what Abraham Lincoln did. It was really incredible. But and then the next thing you know, became a promoter and a matchmaker and an announcer. And he's in the Boxing Hall of Fame twice. And he had very little education. He just knew that was what he wanted to do. And he went in that direction. And the universe opened up for him because he just felt drawn to it. It was natural. And he didn't have much of an education. So I love that. I think that is, I'm not saying here, don't get me wrong, people, don't get an education, please. I'm not saying that, but limitation is probably the most damning thing to a dream.
Mhm.
When you
Yeah.
have any kind of limited thinking at all, either way, from one end to the other, I'm too smart, I'm not smart enough, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, so what you're doing is really great. You're not only telling people this, but you've made an example of yourself to show people that if you really want to do something, you can do it. You
Absolutely.
can go after it.
Yeah.
Was
I,
Oh, go ahead. I don't want to talk too much.
no. Okay. Well, I was just gonna say the education part, I think, is actually something worth considering because, as we discussed yesterday, parents be trying to tell their kids they need to go to college. But we know that the top 400 most wealthiest people in the U.S. With a degree are not as wealthy as the top 400 without a degree, you know? So it really just depends on what you're wanting to do. And that goes back to allowing the son or daughter to find themselves, whether you're the teacher, find what works best for them to learn, and then ultimately discover themselves and find out what they want to do.
And teach them about the plan factor.
Yeah.
You said the busing, and they had to have a plan, and that part, I love that. That's very empowering.
The whole program was a whole thought out plan on what we're going to do with these type of kids, because we would have definitely been bored, and then that caused us to be in trouble. Every time I was bored in school, I get in all this trouble, but it was because I was just bored. So definitely, and it's like, it's the same thing though. Let's step out of the school system for a moment. We've all know somebody that's got that kid that's throwing the ball, and the parents like, stop throwing the ball. You're in the house. You're in it. Whatever, right? It is, or whatever it may be. Put your own variable in there. But see, I know you like football, right?
Yes.
The house likes football. So that kid may be naturally picking up that ball, throwing it because he's like, yeah, I'm working on my he don't know why, but he's like, I'm supposed to pick this up. I'm supposed to throw it, right? And because his parents, chastised him, punished him, took the ball away, he may never become, John Madden or John Elway or Cam Newton or whoever, you know what I mean? Because you're not supposed to throw the ball in the house.
I love that. That reminds me of something that I saw similar to that, where this kid was tapping on everything. So his mom gave him some drumsticks.
Right.
And I forget who it was, but he's a famous drummer. I should remember that. But she gave him something to do with that, being drawn to that. That
align with what they want.
There's already natural affinity for doing, which is what my grandfather did. He was a water boy. And I want to say that it was just a random job to make some money. And, he wrote a book, which didn't get published, and I'm working on that. But, there he is as a young kid, watching it all go on, just wow. And look at that. And so he kept going. What initially just started off as like something to get some money ended up turning into an amazing career. He matched Cassius Clay and Hearns and so many other. He was in with the Rat Pack. All of those guys, they invested in boxers and things like that. So he was in the entertainment world. He learned about that. I mean, it was so fun to talk with him, and his life was so exciting. And, but it started from what you said, that natural, just being drawn to it. He didn't have anyone holding him back. So he was able to move forward. And so I like the point. I think what you're saying is, if you see a child that takes an interest in something, look into that.
Right. And this is an absolute amazing time to take on that mindset for all the, the parents out there. I remember when I was younger, we had video games like Nintendo, was the big thing. It just came out, I don't know, it was about 8, 9, 10, something like that. But what I'm getting at is, back then, it made sense to say, hey, don't be sitting around playing that game all day because, you're going to waste your life away. But now we're in an era where, you know what, go ahead and play that video game, get really good at it, because you can become a YouTuber and make millions and millions of dollars.
I know.
See what I'm saying?
Who knew that would happen? That's a skill.
Right.
It is a skill.
Entertainment. So
and a gift too, if you're good at it and you're just naturally, like, you see people that do the Rubik's Cube thing. I mean, I can't do that to save my life. You see these guys. It's done. Like, how the heck did he do that?
Exactly.
And they win contests and they get scholarships to expand on their abilities. And so there's more than one way to get there, I guess, is what we're kind of saying. And
using your Rubik's Cube example, just throw this in there real quick. Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
There's some parent out there that told their son or daughter that, put that thing down, it's stupid. what you doing with a Rubik's Cube? You ain't gonna make no money doing it. You know, go get a, you know, something that made them feel inferior and less than of themselves for dealing with the same tool or toy, if you want to call it such.
I've
So you see
had
the
family
seesaw.
members tell me that exact thing about music. There's no money in it. Why would you do it? Well, first of all, I never wanted to do music to make money. I thought like the greatest
Yes,
honor you could have would be to move somebody by a song that gets them through the
absolutely.
day. We think about our favorite artists. You know, I think about God, everything. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, Motown, the English invasion, uh, jazz, Miles Davis, and just, oh, I don't know. I don't want to get too,
Do it,
I
do
get
it,
so
do
excited when we
it.
talk about this stuff that I get off on the tangent. One thing that has always been challenging for me is I'm very analytical.
Right.
And I think that's where we connect. That other people are like, what the heck are you talking about? Because, you know, I can see above and I can see all the tentacles that
Yes.
connect to this one particular principle or whatever. And then
Spider
I
web.
drive people crazy because
Yeah.
I'll start talking about all that. They're like, where, what? They're lost and not lost, but it can be overwhelming.
They're focused, right? The
Yeah.
thing about it is, you know, a way to describe it is that we are in a what some would say is a fractal universe, right?
Hmm.
And what that means is that the more you focus on any one point in time and space, the more it expands, you know?
I
So
love
when you
that.
look at a dot at the end of a sentence, the period, it's just a little dot. But if you were to zoom down into it, it has mountains and peaks, and it's like a whole universe of itself. And then you get down to the atomic level where it's galaxies for real, you know, basically. So the more
Mm.
you focus on anything, now think about that as an idea. So if someone's used to just, this is why this happens, like you talk about if then statement, right? Cause and effect.
Yes.
They have to realize that there's a whole equation of infinity that also
I
produces
was
the
just
same
going to say
result.
that. It made me think of infinity. It
Yeah.
made me think of the concept of infinity, and how everything is kind of connected too,
Yeah. And that's what you're
you
doing.
know?
You're
Mhm.
finding you're we're truth based, right?
Yes.
So you're finding the infinity because that's the only way to be true is to have consideration of the infinity.
Yeah. I was always a question asker as a kid, and I would drive a lot of people crazy. But why? But why? I don't understand. So I go to heck with it. I'll figure it out. I
See,
wanted to know. I didn't just want to believe. I wanted to actually know why. Okay, so
right.
how do these dots connect? And what you said is very powerful. The power of cause and effect. I think I was able to see that as a young age. Well, you're doing this, and I see this outcome. Maybe you
Mm.
don't want to do that no more because this keeps happening. Then maybe we should stop doing that. You know what I mean? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. I feel like just I still do that a lot. I still drive people crazy with that, but
So,
I just can't help it.
well, what do you think? What do you think they listening to this, right? You're asking questions and I ask questions, right? They throw me over this side for asking questions and they put a gag order on you for asking questions. And by the label of this, oh, you're this because you ask questions. And what it really was, ultimately,
Problem
like we talked
child.
about creating that environment with the right person, this person wanted to go home at the end of the day or wanted to go do something else. And the way they got rid of you, so to speak, was to put a label on you. You see what I'm saying? Gaslighting. Now they can go
Mhm.
home on time and they felt like they're accomplished because they checked something on a little box on a piece of paper that actually changed your whole life.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I love
That's
that. And we do that a lot with children. You know, get out of here, kid. You bother me. I hate to say that, but there was a lot of that growing up. Go outside and play, um, and we've been taught that if a child does ask questions, they're bothersome. They're acting up, which teaches them not to ask questions
right.
and don't be a bother.
Right.
And
Yeah.
tying those two together, you know what I mean? It's, huh? No,
Oh
if a
man.
child keeps asking you a question, answer the damn question or find
That-
somebody that can. So that
That
they're taught, they're allowed to want to know why things go the way they are. What's wrong with that? They're
yeah,
curious. That's where you
yeah,
have a huge moment of opportunity to really empower. I love what you said, empower your
yeah.
child.
I'm
It's important to
laughing.
ask questions.
I'm laughing because you're the vibration of your conversation actually reminded me of the relationship with like my mother, right? We was talking about the kids answering questions and stuff. Now think about it. You got this third grader that's basically doing astrophysics, right? So
Oh, wow.
how do you be a regular traditional parent trying to do regular traditional parent things when your third grader is a lawyer? You know what I mean? Like, you need to go in your room and do this right now. Well, actually, mother, let me show you this. Exhibit A says, da-da-da-da. My mother was ready to kill me a lot. And I try to tell her even to the day, look, I understand what happened. Like, I was just really difficult because we were both just being us. You know what I mean? Um,
Inquisitive.
so yeah, stuff when you ask about the cause and effects of like that type of situation, the same way it would create for different reasons um dynamics within the family structure in your end
Yeah.
as well, because you are who you are. We're both driving our parents crazy. We both got different labels, but we both feel the same inside.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
That's
Hungry
incredible.
for knowledge, hungry to understand. We want to understand these things. And that's normal for a child. Their brain is developing. It
Yeah,
wants to grow and
yeah,
expand. It's the way that it's designed.
right.
That's
My
what
mother.
it's for. But when you're a parent, and please don't get me wrong, and I know you're on the same page, we're not talking bad about parents. I mean,
No.
these are things we weren't able to talk to, but now because of the internet, we have so much, and Google, so much information available to us that is a tremendous blessing
Yes.
of how. I mean, now if let's say you were little now, your mom could look it up. Here you go, and have you read Google.
Right.
Maybe have the questions for us. So, but this idea of the children that are inquisitive and excited about things and are always asking questions are troublesome, or what was the word that we used, annoying,
Mm,
pestering,
right.
or even just,
All of the
what's
above.
all of them, yeah, is inaccurate. They're looking, and also I think children are looking to connect. They want to connect and talk about these things
Mhm,
with you so they can, because it's natural. And Trent Sheldon was talking about this in one of his videos, and I just loved it last week
mhm.
or a couple of weeks ago, where he noticed that his child, he's very little, I'd say he's 3 or something, he noticed that he was mimicking everything he was doing. And so if a child does that and they want to know why you're doing what you're doing, like, explain it to them.
Yeah,
When you do, you're connecting with them, you're building a bond. It's an important
absolutely.
part of the development in the relationship with the parent and the child,
And
you
you're
know
and you're learning about them
and you're learning about them.
instead of
Yes.
trying to install them into them. You know what I mean? What they should be. You know what I mean?
What
You
they
learn.
should be. Yeah, the
Right.
shoulds. And the tough part about that is I look at my mom. She couldn't give us something that was never given to her. If she had
Exactly.
no reference, she's just going to do what she was taught. And that's what we're up to here. Some
Yes.
revisions on how we do this with children, and
Yes.
give them as much as, and give them what we didn't get.
Yeah. To reinforce what you were saying earlier, this is not an attack on the parents.
Mm-mm.
It's I think this is a great visualization and presentation of what we're talking about is exactly the same at its core, and then how you get the whole scope. Well, we get in the screen, the whole scope here of the two different extremes and the damage that it caused for some. And then there's some advantages if you look at them, you know what I mean?
In the right
Um,
way.
right.
Yes.
So what the parents need to do, for all the parents that's listening, is to take out the particular variable that you hear us discussing today and put in whatever variable it actually is in your household, because the equation is infinite. but the equation
Yes.
is the truth. And that's why I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm really glad you mentioned that's like the $1 million question, because what we have to do to get to the children, if we're going to change the future, is we have to start with the parents. So many groups, even if they have good intent, they say, oh, we need to start with the kids, get to the youth. Well, if the youth is going to go home and still be criticized, gaslit, it doesn't matter what you try to put into them, because they're going to feel like it's even, get it away from me because I'm being destroyed for having this, whatever it is with me. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So we got to get to the parents as well to again create the enrichment, the environment uniformly.
When you see people talk about it's not the dog, it's the owner, it's the same
Mhm.
principle.
Exactly.
The owner is going to create whatever it allows the dog's behavior to be.
Exactly.
And it's
And
the same principle. Also, on a side note, which is very much connected to what we're talking about. Have you ever seen the movie Citizen Kane?
so I probably
Oh,
have and just don't remember it. What was? Go ahead,
Citizen
tell me.
Kane. I want to say it was loosely based on the Hearst Castle. Hearst. I'm spacing on his name. He was a very successful businessman. I believe it was a long time ago when I saw it. But anyways,
Mhm.
the premise of the story, and I still highly recommend you watch it because you'll love it and you'll get it at the end. You'll so get it. But, he starts off as this beautiful, innocent little boy and everything. And his inquisitiveness leads him to be very successful. But then he loses himself. And in the
Mm.
end, he goes back to his childhood and he lost some of those things that gave him vitality as a child
Mhm.
in the adult world. Um, and this movie really illustrates a lot of what we're talking about.
Citizen
Um,
Kane.
Citizen Kane, yeah. And in the end, and I just shared a meme about this the other day of so much of what we long for as we become adults and we realize what's missing is the things that we did when we were little that we had the freedom to do in a
Hmm.
sense.
Explore.
Yeah, explore curiosity. Just somebody said this today, curiosity killed the cat. And I found out that's not the whole complete statement.
Right.
And that lie, I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it what it is a
Mhm.
lie.
Mhm.
If we weren't curious, we wouldn't learn anything. You wouldn't want to know why certain things are the way they are. Curiosity is extremely important to developing and growing as a person. And
Yeah.
that happens till you die.
And
You
it's
never stop
also
learning.
it now, since we're talking about the full scope of everything, it's very, what you said is absolutely true, and take note of that. And then also consider that on this side, it's extremely dangerous for the people that are trying to mold the population or the system.
Yeah.
Don't look behind,
Balance.
don't look be behind the veil, right?
I love what you said. You brought this up a few times. This is one of the universal principles is the principle of polarity,
Mm.
um, duality.
Mhm.
There's good and bad, there's pros and cons to things. And that's essential in keeping balance. It's off the subject, but you've mentioned it a few times. I felt it was worth sort of expounding on a bit here
It's absolutely on topic.
because that's what
Again,
happened to you. Like you had you like you said you wouldn't have been able to become who you are, but at the same time, in your short video, you talked about how it was had a negative effect on you as
right,
well. So
right. Some of those, like, yeah. So absolutely agree. To the reality is, if I was able to assimilate easier, who knows what I would have been able to accomplish now, just because I'd have had the support of people that otherwise wouldn't support me. Same with you, right?
yes,
Because we're talking about both ends. It's the same thing. And that's the magic of what we're discussing here, is
yes,
the core is the same. And then look at how wide the spectrum of the scope is, you know?
yes,
And then
yes.
so yeah, there definitely could have been some things that could have been done. But guess what I see that as? somebody else, somebody else's chemistry, somebody else's makeup, right, made them perfect to do whatever that other thing would have been that I would have done. They're out there doing it because they're perfectly made for that role.
I
So
love that.
we were created to do what we do, and we have to, as individuals, all of us, we have to know that, we have to own that. You know, find your identity, find out who you really are, and know that it's not that you're flawed, it's your perfection. It's your own perfection.
Yes. And when I was saying a few minutes earlier about people go back to their childhood, you know, and they go back to the things that they felt a natural affinity to, where they didn't get any support.
Mhm.
And then they realize, my gosh, and they go back, that maybe they liked art. Maybe they wanted to play an instrument. Maybe they wanted to, I don't know, anything under the sun, and they didn't do it for whatever reason. People told them they couldn't
Right.
for some reason. And that goes back to pursuing what your natural inclination is, that you're drawn to and you're curious about. It's just interesting that you get older and you get off the beaten path and you lose yourself, only to come back to that initial thing that you were drawn to, that you felt a natural connection to. That's what I think, what your thing about the graveyard and
Yeah.
of dead dreams that
Yeah.
they didn't pursue because everybody was telling them. We talked about the frog story. They couldn't. So they just went with their best suit, their strongest thing, and maybe they went and became a lawyer. I have a friend that was so smart, and she went to school for years to be a lawyer, and only in the end, she never did it. It was miserable. What she wanted to do was sing, and she was an incredible singer. Unfortunately, she passed a few years ago, but
Condolences.
I was glad she got to go back to that and experience her dream,
Right.
what she truly wanted to do. But because her dad and the brothers were doctors and successful, and it's in their culture that, you know, that's what you do. And they came from another country to America to get all the opportunities here. And the idea is the right idea. They just missed out on make sure it's something that you really want to do.
Mhm.
Just because you're
Yeah.
good at it doesn't necessarily mean you want to do it too.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that
Exactly.
makes any sense, but
It totally does, and I think that's a very important topic to put on the table for people, because you had that instinct in the beginning, like we talked, like you mentioned a lot, when you're still a youth, when you're still someone's, well, you're always someone's son or daughter, but when you're still a youth, right, coming up, you have that, you haven't been forced to put blinders on and get tunnel vision, you know, and give up your dreams, like you said. But and if we maybe take into consideration that they're there for a reason, you
yeah,
know, like what really, I know you talked to me the other day about the one of the shows on one of the other videos I did. You're supposed to be God said you were supposed to be the greatest ever, you know. So there you go. If you don't ever go back and take advantage of that, you wind up, you know, getting up there and they're saying it was supposed to be you, but you never tried, you know.
but you never tried.
A
Yeah.
good story
Yes.
for that is I forget which one it is. It's one of those luggage makers, right? They start off as luggage makers and they make the famous bags now and all that stuff, the pocketbooks for women. I don't know if it's Louis or
Gucci.
Gucci. I think it is
Gucci.
Gucci. Started off as a dishwasher.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And
Yes.
what if someone came along? Remember we was talking about the support factor. Like if you were this, then more people would have supported you, and over here you could have done something different. So what happens if he gets what he did actually to a degree? But what happens if you get some support, rally up behind you? They push him up to restaurant manager, and he winds up going on leading the chain of someone else's restaurants, and never becomes Gucci. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It was
Not
because he
pursuing
didn't have that
somebody
support.
else's. Yes. Yeah. That's where I would, I would like to do, I don't know if this is something you'd be up to. I'd like, because I do our podcast and we're coming up on the hour. I
Okay.
would love to do a part two and dig a little deeper in the stuff that we're talking about and bring up the examples, bring up
Sure.
people and talk about what they achieved and how they did that. And you know, I think there's more we could talk about it. I think there's more
I am
we could expound
excited
on this a
about that
little bit.
idea.
You like
I'm
that idea? I
excited.
would love to do a
Yes.
part two of this so we can really break it down so people know exactly what we're talking about here. Because
Yeah.
there's so many variables. So I want to be able to cover as many of those as we can so people really understand the deeper layers of these principles we're talking about
I'm all
and
for it.
pursuing your dreams and manifesting and making these things happen and using successful people to illustrate that point, those points. What do you
Let's do
think?
it.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
I'm
That's going to
down.
empower people. Yeah. That's going to empower people because you don't know what you don't know. And some of these stories that we're going to find and be able to share, it's going to open up people to, wow, if they can do it, I can do it, which is the whole point of this
Yes.
whole show, what we're doing,
Yes.
etc. So I'm all for it. Let's help the people
I love it.
the best we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And viewers, thank you so much for watching. Um, Anything else at the end here you want to share? Anything that's important to you, you want to share with the viewers, books, whatever, your podcast, all of the above.
Hey, I appreciate that. You can find everything if you just the name right there in the bottom of the screen. Just throw that in Google, everything will pop up. What I want you to do, what's really important to me, is that you guys keep supporting Trish and share these videos
And
because I
ditto.
watch her videos too. And if 20 people, 100 people seen it, it should be 1,000 because those 100 should be sharing it with everybody around them because this information needs to get out. Have the conversation. Take the video to your friend's house. Sit down and watch it with them. Talk about it. Have the conversation. Grow the discussion. Trish is out here putting in a lot of work. Look what she's ready to do. We're ready to do research, come to you with real facts to put in front of you. That takes time and energy. She's investing in you. Don't
Yes.
let the investment stop there. Pay it forward.
Ditto. And the same with you. I mean, I can't say that enough. I feel so blessed and grateful to have connected. And I'm really excited to do the next podcast. I think it's just going to be amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Always the perfect day. Thanks for having
All
me.
right. Okay, guys, till next time. We'll see you soon.